let's take a look into the discovery of a Sri Lankan Banshee who wore her broken heart on her feathers. I'm Cody, and Cryptids Across the Atlas is taking a pit stop to learn about animals that used to be cryptids. In the dense, tangled jungles of Sri Lanka, where shadows move and whispers seem to rise from the earth itself, there's a story that's been told for generations. A tale as old as the trees that loom overhead. It's a story about sorrow, betrayal, and something that came back from the brink of death. It began on a night steeped in tragedy. A mother, shattered by grief, came home to find her world torn apart. Her child, lifeless, taken from her by the one person she trusted the most. Her husband, driven by some dark impulse, had done the unthinkable. The woman's screams of anguish cut through the night, a raw and primal sound that seemed to reach the very heavens. Unable to bear the weight of her pain, she fled into the jungle, desperate to escape the life she could no longer endure. But in the depths of the jungle, something strange happened. The gods, moved by her sorrow, or perhaps by something darker, intervened. They took her broken body and breathed into it a new life, a twisted life. She was transformed, no longer just a grieving mother, but something more. Something that would become a living warning to others. She became the ulama, the devil bird, a creature of the night whose cry was said to be the last sound you'd ever hear. With black, hollow eyes that reflected nothing but her torment, and horns that jutted from her head like a crown of despair, she was a sight that could freeze your blood. Her body bore the marks of her suffering, symbols etched into her flesh by the gods themselves. But it was her voice that struck fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Her cry, a haunting, mournful wail, carried the weight of her endless grief. To hear it was to be pulled into her despair, to feel the unbearable sorrow that drove her to the jungle in the first place. For centuries, the people of Sri Lanka feared the sound of the devil bird. They knew that when her cry pierced the night, death was most likely near. Her scream wasn't just a warning, it was an harbinger, a symbol that something terrible was about to happen. As time went on though, to many it became just another ghost story, something to scare the children before bed. But in the 1950s, an ornithologist named George Morton Henry, driven by curiosity mostly, decided to look into the origins of this chilling tale. Henry, a man who believed in facts over superstition, wanted to know the truth. So when a large bird was captured deep in the Sri Lankan jungle, Henry was intrigued. The creature had dark, intense eyes, horns plumed on its head, and feathers that formed a heart-like pattern on its chest. But it was the sound it made, a piercing, feminine shriek that caught Henry's attention. It was the same eerie cry described in the stories of the ulama. Henry wrote down everything in his journal and soon published his findings. And because of this, the world came to know the Sri Lankan spot-bellied eagle owl as the real creature behind this ancient legend. But even with that science laid bare, the story of the devil bird endures. It lingers in the shadows, reminding us that some stories are more than just superstition. They're echoes of something that once was, and something that might still be out there waiting to be heard. We hope you found this pit stop refreshing. Now it's time to get back on the road and headed to our next cryptid destination. Be sure to keep those notifications on to get notified when we reach the next stop on our tour. And as always, thanks for touring Cryptids Across the Atlas. And don't forget to keep your eyes open. You never know what you might see just on the edge of the road.